Three, two, one. Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted as always to be joined by Danny Gilfield. And we've just seen Dalton Smith defeat WALID OUIZZA in one round in Nottingham tonight, Danny. Really hope you enjoyed it. Not the most competitive fight you'll ever see. Give us your reaction. Yeah, not maybe not the not kind of not the entertaining back and forth main event we were perhaps hoping for.
I wasn't expecting that to be. I suppose the one positive is, like, it was clear within the first 30 seconds that Dalton Smith was a good few levels above Walid Weezer. And, like, he's not taken, 4 or 5 rounds dicking about to get rid of him. He's just gone and absolutely flattened him. So we're not sad about wasting our time watching a complete mismatch. And that is what it was. Dalton Smith, I mean, don't when was the last time he's had a fight that comfortable, even against the likes of English level fighters like Sam Mason and Billy Allington. He was, asked some questions, went a few rounds at least. Like, not to be disrespectful, if you had told me that Wild Weezer only started boxing a couple of years ago, I would definitely believed you. He just did not move his head, couldn't put his hands up. Dalton Smith hitting him at will, and I goes without saying, getting waved off at the time it did was the right decision. Don't know what that fight does for Dalton Smith, but
No, no. I've got a few things to kind of get off my chest here, but I think the first thing I want to say is tonight was not good enough. Um, I think that Walid Weasel, I think it was you said it in one of our WhatsApp groups, just didn't look very confident.
mm,
Was ring walk in the corner before the fight was going to start, and you could just kind of you could just tell it was easy to tell what was about to happen because he just looked like he really didn't want to be there. And then as soon as the fight started, I think it was abysmal. I think this fight was for the European title tonight. I don't know how that fight's happened for the European title. It makes that level of boxing look like at a level where it shouldn't be or where it's not. But I think the thing that's frustrated me is that DAZN is not free, so they should be making better fights for something that is for something that's a paid subscription. Rant over, but yeah, just not a very good fight. There's not much more to touch on. But if you've got any thoughts to what I've said, then please go ahead, Danny.
yeah, you're absolutely correct. I mean, you don't have to be a detective to work it out. These Saudi shows we're getting are absolutely great. I mean, the show on February 22nd is definitely the best I've seen since I've started watching. But what's going to happen is fighters aren't going to want to be in meaningful competitive fights if they're not happening over there and they can get 3 times the purse or whatever it is. So as a result, Dalton Smith saying, right, if I'm not fighting in Saudi Arabia, I'll fight here for the X amount of money, but it's not going to be in a fight I'm going to risk losing. And that's how you get the likes of Walid Weezer. I mean, absolutely. I know you've sort of touched on it pretty well, so we'll not spend too much time going over it, but I wouldn't expect it to change anytime soon. And the thing is, you touched on DAZN being a subscription-based service that has continually got more expensive. It's funny when you see this brought up to Eddie Hearn, people at the Zone, Alfie Sharma, I think is the one they usually wheel out. It's, oh, well, we're getting Beterbiev Bivol too, we're getting Fury Usyk too. They're all on pay-per-view. We have to pay extra again for that. So what you're getting for your apps, what you would have had this month as part of your DAZN subscription would have been Anthony Taylor versus Darren Till, and this
Yeah,
for what, 20 quid?
yeah.
It's unbelievably bad.
It's poor, and I don't. I feel like we've had an early finish tonight, so I don't want to turn that
That's
to
the
into
positive. That's the
yeah,
positive.
exactly. But I don't want to turn that into a late finish because the amount of time we're going to spend talking. But I'm passionate and I care about British boxing. You're someone who goes to shows as media. I'm someone who goes to shows as media. Um, and I just think that if you are a someone who goes to shows as a fan, that's going to dry out if this continues. And my worry with the Saudi stuff is if in 2, 3 years' time, Saudis come out of boxing, they don't want to invest as much money in boxing anymore. There might not be anything left in Britain. So that's kind of my that's the worry. And I also just think if you're watching on DAZN tonight as a casual boxing fan, you'd probably think, you know what, that British fight cards, they're not great. I'll just tune into the Saudi ones, which makes the British product reduced even more. And tonight, it's not just the main event, it's the whole card, if we're being honest. A fantastic, dramatic moment in the co-main event. But apart from that, Ellie Scotney, I think, lost one round. And it's not a competitive night of boxing.
The rest just mismatches, just
Yeah.
prospects against journeyman.
Yeah. And this was not a next gen show. This is Dalton Smith main eventing, who's supposed to be a big star of British boxing, the future world champion. And yeah, we've just seen him against a really poor opponent. Moving on. We're going to have a bit of fun now. I want to know, is Dalton Smith Britain's best super lightweight? We put a tweet out on X earlier this week, and had some people agreeing with it, disagreeing with it. Dalton Smith, Jack Catterall, Danny. I think it's a potential future fight. We could see in the next 12 months possibly. But who's the better fighter? Who would you back to win that fight now?
You've got to say Catterall, don't you? Just based off the level of opposition. That's not to say I would be 100% Jack Catterall will beat Dalton Smith, because I think Dalton Smith's a very good fighter and potentially a pretty difficult style for Jack Catterall. But you can't say, oh, he's unanimously better. You have to put the most credence on who they've actually beat in the ring. And in terms of world level or close to it, Dalton Smith has beat fairly faded Jose Pedraza. Jack Catterall, in most people's opinions, beat Josh Taylor twice, should have been undisputed, beat Regis Prograis. That's sort of it in terms of, standout wins. But that's, so much more than Dalton Smith's done. So I think it would be, like, whilst it wouldn't be a foregone conclusion, I think it would be fairly disrespectful to Jack Catterall to say, oh, Dalton Smith's the best super lightweight in Britain.
Yeah, for sure. I also just think, yeah, it would just be such a step up in class for Dalton Smith if that fight was to say happen next, which it won't. But yeah, we'll see if that fight happens in
Like
the
Jack Catterall would have stopped WALID WALID.
uh yeah. I mean, if you consider he dropped Frogray in his last fight, I would like to think so. I'd really like to think so. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't really want to think about it anymore. So I'm just going to ignore your question, to be honest, and move on. Dalton Smith versus Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor possibly past his best. Been out the ring since May last year. He's had a really inactive 2 or 3 years now. Josh Taylor still don't really know what's happening. Hoping he's going to be in the ring again soon. What about that fight? Who would you back to win that one, Danny?
Tough one because I was actually really impressed with the performance Josh Taylor put in against Jack Catterall in that rematch. I didn't think he had that left in him, certainly not at 140 pounds. And I think you'll remember he actually took a bit of money off me. I thought that Catterall might even stop him. But you just sort of wonder if that was because obviously the history around the him and Catterall's the first fight, the back and forth, it got very personal. Would Josh Taylor be able to summon that out of himself, not just on fight night in terms of preparation, the weight cut? If that fight was to happen, it's probably going to be like a year, 2 years removed from that rematch with Catterall, and he's getting older, and the weight cut's going to get tougher and tougher. And I think if the version of Josh Taylor that showed up against Jack Catterall on that rematch showed up against Dalton Smith, I think he would beat him if it happened next. But I've said this obviously before that rematch and looked a bit stupid, but I just don't think Josh Taylor would be able to get into that shape. I don't think a Dalton Smith fight would have that motivation for him the same way the rematch with Catterall did. So, say if we're saying the back end of this year, I'd probably pick Dalton Smith to beat him. I think.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Have to see. Like, just yeah, hope to see kind of some news come out from Josh Taylor now because he's not getting any younger. Not going to touch on the Adam Zim stuff just because we've spoken about it so many times. Adam Zim's in action next weekend. See if he wins that fight against Sergey Lipnitz, and we'll see what happens post fight then. But yeah, just final question from me, Danny. Post fight stuff. We obviously had Dalton himself speak, Frank Smith speak, but then Dalton Smith's trainer and dad, Grant Smith, spoke and just said with WBC title next, basically. For those that don't know, Albert Puello versus Sandor Martin is taking place on the 1st of March in New York. Do you think that's going to happen? I'm not asking you for kind of it's too complicated to ask for predictions for this fight and then who wins that and then them against Dalton Smith. But do you think that's gonna happen? Do you think we're going to see Dalton Smith fight for the WBC title next?
It's a fight you could see potentially ordered made because The WBC are certain, not that any of the governing bodies are particularly reputable, but I would say they're down there with the least of them. However, that's usually just in terms of protecting their big cash cow champions. We saw Canelo never forced to fight David Benavidez. Tyson Fury was allowed to just do what he wanted and not really fight a mandatory. But they don't really do that for the likes of Alberto Puello or Sandor Martin if he was to win. So I don't think Mauricio would have any problem ordering Dalton Smith. They probably see Dalton Smith as a bigger commercial commodity. So I think it could potentially happen.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's down to timing as well. Dalton Smith might want to get back out in March or April because he's not really had much of a fight tonight. And how quickly is the winner of the 1st of March fight going to get back into the ring against Dalton Smith? But we'll see. Danny, good to speak to you as always. Not the fight we maybe wanted tonight, but a fight nonetheless. Dalton Smith stays undefeated and becomes European champion. Thank you very much for your time.
Fight in name only. Thanks, mate.